This is going to be a Beadhead Hendrickson. We're going to weight this down a little bit. I've got a size 16 nymph hook in my vise. I'm going to just take some wraps of lead right behind the bead here. I scoot that back a little bit just so I can get a couple more wraps on here. Then I'm going to go ahead and just helicopter my lead wire here on that side. Do the same thing on this side. I'm going to push that right back up into the bead there a little bit. I'll just put a tiny little bit of super glue on that to help that stay in place. Not a lot. It'll just kind of soak in as we're tying the pattern. We'll go ahead and start our thread right behind the lead here. And we're just going to take some thread wraps back to where the bend of the hook is, which is right behind the barb, which is really helpful if you've got a barbed hook, but I'm tying with a barbless hook here, so I don't have that gauge. Just going to take that right up there. Thread is secure. We'll go ahead and remove it. The tail and the legs on this pattern is just going to be some wood duck, not wood duck, but mallard flank. It is a wood duck color. So I'm going to measure those out so they're about the length of the shank of the hook here. And once I have that measurement, I'm going to go ahead and take that backwards. Go ahead and tie that to our hook, top of our hook shank. I'll just take a few wraps and look and see where I am for length. I want those a little bit shorter, so I'm just going to go ahead and tug on that a little bit. And then we're just going to go ahead and tie forward and secure those down. We'll cut off those butt ends. And then I'm just going to work my way back up, trying to make sure I keep those tails centered on the top of the hook. If you have enough length, you can kind of grab hold of them. Now that you've secured them down, they shouldn't come loose on you. That's going to do us just good. We're going to put a rib on this, and I'm just going to use a Brassie size piece of copper wire. I'm going to secure that, and then I'm going to let that wire carry over onto the lens side of the hook. So I'll just take some wraps and secure that down in place. I'll just shorten that so that I don't have to cut it off. Then I'll just come back up and clean up that butt end of the wire. And after I've done that, I'm just going to bring my thread back up and we'll start on our dubbing. We're going to start out with a kind of a tan dubbing. This is caddis nymph dubbing. Go ahead and dub that on here to our thread. I'm going to take some wraps backwards. I'll tighten that up. Get that first wrap right around the base of the tail. I'm going to want that to taper a little bit. Got a little bit more than I need, so I'm going to just go ahead and pull that off. Let's go ahead and secure that little bit left. And from here I'm going to transition the color to a brown. Same kind of dubbing. Kind of just finger dub that right onto our thread. And wrap back over a little bit of that tan. I'm going to just keep it tight. We're transitioning up on top of our lead there. This is a good time for me. I'm going to go in and I'm going to clean up some of these guard hairs that are sticking out, and then we'll move on to our next step. So with those guard hairs cleaned up, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to take our copper wire, get our first wrap right here back towards the base. I'm not going to pull on this too hard. I don't want it to sink so far into the dubbing that I can't see it, or the fish can't see it. I'm just going to take some even open wraps up through that tan as well as the brown dubbing. Pull them right up here on the lead. Take a wrap or two over the top of that. A couple in front of it as well. turn our hook, put some pressure on it as we helicopter it until it gets enough friction that it breaks itself off. Next we're going to add a little piece of 1/8 black thin skin. This is going to be our wing case, and I'm going to put that right down the center of the hook. Let's secure that right behind the bead. And go ahead and bring that back. I'm going to kind of stretch it a little bit as I take my turns right back into that brown dubbing. And now we'll transition to black dubbing. All of these are the same kind of dubbing, so we've transitioned from that tan to the brown, and now we'll just finger dub this black on, and that will be our final color. Make sure I get right back over that thin skin. Tighten that down just a little bit so I can travel a little bit further. I want to get this right up behind the bead. Our legs are going to be that same Mallard flank. I'm going to tie one set in. This is about maybe 6 or 7 fibers. Tie one side in on my side of the hook. I'm going to take a couple of wraps to kind of lock them in place. And I'm going to go ahead and readjust them so that they're running parallel to the hook shank. And I'm going to shorten them up quite a bit. Just take a couple of wraps so you can see our nice legs kind of sticking out there. I'm going to go ahead and leave my vise sideways a little bit, and we'll just come on in and trim those butt ends off. And we'll get our other set of legs. We're going to tie these in on the lens side of the hook. Kind of hold those in place. Take a loose wrap around it once or twice. And I'll go ahead and reposition those. I'm going to look at the length. Looks like we got it fairly close there. So I'm going to go ahead and take a few more wraps and secure that down. And I come on in with my scissors and we'll cut off the butt ends here as well. So what we're left with are 2 good sets of legs on either side of the shank of the hook. Finally, let's go ahead and take our wing case. I'm going to pull that right over the top, center it over the bead. Take a wrap or 2 to secure that in place. I'm going to kind of pull it a little bit tighter and take a couple more good tight wraps on it. I'm going to pull it backwards and get some wraps behind the bead and not on the thin skin. Once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and take my thin skin and we're going to go ahead and trim it out. I usually do about half at a time. And I'm just going to take some thread wraps and create a small collar, not too much of one, but a small collar here. Then I'll just go ahead and give myself a little bit of extra thread because we're ready to whip finish. I'll grab my whip finishing tool. Make sure that's nice and seated. Grab my thread cutter and we'll remove our thread. Well, finally I'm just going to add a drop of head cement right on that scud back. I want that to go ahead and go right over the bead. I'm going to check on both sides to make sure it's going down either side of that thin skin. So there you have it, the Beadhead Hendrickson. It's a great pattern, especially when the beetesses are hatching. It'll do really well for you. Great transition from the tan, the brown, black dubbing, as well as the Mallard flank we use for the tail and the legs. The lead in that bead is going to get it down the water for you really quick. So grab yourself a hook, throw it in your vise, and give this one a shot.